Welcome to Backstage Pass with Gail Davis, your invitation into the world of keynote speaking and event planning expertise. Join us as we pull back the curtain and dive into exclusive interviews with speaking industry experts. From seasoned speakers to master event planners, we're here to provide you with the ultimate backstage experience. Get ready to unlock valuable insights, tips, and strategies that will elevate your events and leave your audience inspired. Welcome to another episode of Backstage Pass. I am so excited today to have our guest, Felipe Gomez. I feel like I've been on a Felipe Gomez love fest this entire year. I started January with him speaking to one of our top clients out in Las Vegas, and it was a smashing success. And if you are an event planner and you're listening to this podcast and you have not heard the name Felipe Gomez, you're going to remember the day you heard this episode and you are going to thank me later. And if you have heard him, it's just a joy and a privilege to share what he's all about. And specifically, I look forward to diving into how he became such an overnight success. Right, Felipe?
Wonderful, Gail. Super happy to be here in Backstage Pass. It's an honor, and let's get started.
Let's get started. Okay, and I was joking, team. He's not a overnight success. He has put in the work. But that's what happens. People put in the work, and then all of a sudden everybody knows about you, and people are like, who is this guy? Where'd he come from? He's just so popular. But there's a lot more to it. Felipe has held senior executive roles in several multinational companies. He founded some successful ventures, and he has built his speaking career on one really unique idea, and that is that business professionals can and should think and perform like virtuoso musicians. And I'm super eager to dive into all of that with you. So thank you so much for being here, Felipe.
No, thank you, Gail, for the invitation. Looking forward for this conversation.
So let's start with this idea of being a virtuoso. I know, because I've been in your audience, that there's always a piano involved. I know that you're a classically trained musician, but how in the world did you connect this concept of virtuoso to content that is resonating across the globe with audiences?
Yeah, that's a great question, Gail, because actually when I started speaking back in 2009, 2008, the piano wasn't there. I was just speaking about entrepreneurship and embracing an entrepreneurial attitude in everything you do in your life. But then my clients kept telling me, do you have something else, Felipe? Do you have another keynote? We want to bring you back next year. So I started thinking, and well, music has been my hobby all of my life. I've had private formation, private teachers. I didn't go to music school. But it's been my passion all my life, and I said, why not bring in the piano on the stage and try to use music as a metaphor to express some ideas? So I started thinking, what could that idea be? And my wife, Pilar, was doing a master's degree in family sciences, something completely different, and she was studying how to teach virtues to your children. And she gave me her dissertation paper to read, and when I read it, I said, this is it. This is probably the message that I want to share with everyone through music, because at the end, a virtuoso is a person full of virtues, and that's how everything connected. And I started just putting these pieces together, and well, I said yes to an event planner that wanted me to have another presentation with their group. I told them I would do this with a piano, and that was my first performance in 2010 with a piano, and it was amazing. And since then, it's been a continuous improvement process. Every time I deliver the keynote, I change something, I add something, even if it's something minimal, like changing 2 slides or something. And today, what you saw in Vegas, it's the result of probably 1,200 iterations that I've been doing. So it's beautiful to see how it polishes itself.
I love the continuous improvement, and hats off to the event planner that asked the question and and had the vision that it could be something more. And hats off to you for being open. I was a former event planner before I started GDA Speakers, and I love it when a speaker and an event planner can collaborate
Hmm.
on, okay, here's what you normally do, but what could we do that would be better? What could we do that would be different? So I did not know that part of the story. I love that.
Yeah, it was super nice. And after that, what started happening is that since it's so different with the music, and it
Ugh.
creates this sense of freshness, not because it's a different way of delivering a message. Uh, People started booking me Virtuoso like crazy, and the other keynote, Attitude E, started like going a little bit down in volume. Mm, but it became like my blockbuster. It was selling like crazy, Virtuoso. Especially, well, obviously in Colombia. That happened when I was living in Colombia, and then in other countries in Latin America, and then in other countries in Europe, and finally here in the US. I've been in the US for 8 years and super happy because it's gaining momentum. People are getting to know what I do. Uh, and you and your team have been instrumental in this. So thank you. Thank you, Gail.
Oh, you're
I'm
welcome.
super grateful for you.
Oh, you're so welcome. I wanted to talk about the fact that you are from Colombia,
Hmm.
but you now live in Atlanta,
Correct.
and I'm assuming that you can give this presentation in Spanish
Yeah.
or English, right?
Yes. Correct.
Okay, perfect. Let's go back a little bit. You had a really fascinating career. You led Compass Group,
Hmm.
which is the world's largest food catering company,
Hmm.
and you launched a pharmaceutical company. You founded a nonprofit. How do these different business experiences shape your approach as you plan to step on that stage to be a speaker and a performer?
Well, I think it gives me the experience and the credibility to really speak there, because I've been there. For me, it's very easy to connect with the challenges, with the problems, with the opportunities that my clients have because I've been in their shoes. So I've managed
Yeah.
people, I've managed unions, I've had problems with customers, I faced financial struggles, I faced you name it. In 20 years of managing companies, you cross with every single situation possible. So when I'm in a call preparing for a keynote and the client tells me, look, we're going through this and we acquired this company and the integration is that, I perfectly understand. And it's very easy for me to relate with them and also to express my ideas so that these ideas will fit their very particular needs. And since these ideas are supported by music, it makes it super special because it makes a lot of sense intellectually, but at the same time, it has a very strong emotional impact on the audience. And that is, I think, what makes it unique, that you are touching both the minds and the hearts of the people. And that's something people are longing for. No, people are longing for experiences that give them this holistic sense of feelings and interest in their minds. And I think that's truly what people love about Virtuoso and what I do. So it's that combination of ideas and music.
I remember one compliment from our experience in January from an audience member. They were at a global sales kickoff,
Hmm.
and I have worked with this client on this event for over a decade for sure. And it's very well orchestrated and it's a very busy schedule, and they get so much information, and they typically have between 3, 4, 5 outside keynote speakers. And I remember someone saying that you have this moment in your presentation, or you have several moments where you actually play the piano, and on the screen you stroll some thought-provoking questions,
Yeah.
and you give the audience permission. You don't have to turn to your neighbor and share. It's just a think about it moment. And I remember this person saying it was so appreciated to have time that week when all the information is coming in, it's coming in, for someone to give you a moment just to kind of absorb and process what you were hearing. So I think that's a really key component. I
Yeah.
love that part of your presentation.
Yeah. So somebody that heard me some time ago in an event in Miami told me, and I hadn't thought about it, that it's like a negative space, which is so scarce when you're a speaker, because you get paid to speak.
Yes.
So it's
Right.
very rare just to shut up, right? So that's what I do. I actually shut up 3 times during my keynote, and for 3 minutes, I just let the music flow, the
Well,
questions
and the
pop in the
music
screen.
is beautiful.
The
You
music is
really are
beautiful.
an accomplished pianist, and it's just beautiful. So let's talk a little bit about that keynote, the Virtuoso Code. You have 3 pillars,
Yeah,
and they're method, attitude, and passion.
correct.
Can you walk us through kind of what that keynote experience is like and how you go into these various pillars?
Sure. Well, the whole thing stems out from the idea of, we've all experienced the excitement of a standing ovation after a performance of a great musician. And it's so nice, you see all the people there standing up,
Yeah.
with all of these emotions, and it's a very special moment. So my question was, what triggers that reaction from the audience? What is it that happens? Because it's not only technical mastery. There are many musicians that perform very well their instruments that probably they don't get standing ovations, because it's a little bit more than technical mastery. So I started trying to decompose what is it that these musicians have, and I found out that it was the combination of these 3 elements: method, right, which leads them to play their instruments with mastery and to do what they do in an extraordinary way from a technical perspective. Also, embracing the right attitude on the stage, not being arrogant, being humble, being there, being present, being, like giving their whole selves to the audience. I think that's super important. And the third one is performing with love and performing with passion, which really makes the difference. You can perfectly tell when a musician is performing with love or not. And when these 3 things orchestrate in a beautiful harmony, it's when the audience, when the last note is played, like in unison, everybody stands up, start clapping. So my logic is, why can't we create this same effect with our clients, with our employees, with our vendors, with our different stakeholders? And to do so, we have to focus exactly on the same 3 pillars: method, so that everything we do it with mastery; embracing the right attitudes to connect better with the people around us; and doing what we do with passion and love. And when you do that, the ordinary ceases to happen and the extraordinary starts to happen. So I think it's a beautiful formula that decomposes what triggers standing ovations, and why can't we provoke those standing ovations in our businesses and in our professional lives?
So I already know the answer to this question because I've been following you so closely this year. But for our listeners, what audiences do you think you're most often booked for? You and I were in Vegas for a sales kickoff in January, and then there are also incentive trips.
Mm-hmm.
There are leadership conferences, and then there are member organizations.
Yeah.
So I know you've had success in all those. Is there one that resonates more? Do you tweak it for the various audiences? Where should people be thinking about having you?
Well, I always tweak it, because I am a true believer that, and it's little things, it's not that I
Yes.
change the keynote. The keynote is the same, and the key messages are the same, and the structure is the same, but it's just, a few words, something here and there that aligns with our client's strategy, that aligns with the situation that they are going through, that aligns with the theme of the conference where we're speaking. And these are just very subtle changes that makes it feel super customized. Okay. But your question is great, because usually you tend to frame a speaker in a very particular field. He's great for sales kickoffs. Or
Yes.
this woman's great when we're going to speak about innovation, or this one's great when we're going to speak about change. The magic and the beauty of this is that it's a universal message. It applies to any situation. It can be change, leadership development, a kickoff, a sales meeting, a recognition event, a meeting with clients, a meeting with distributors, a meeting with partners. Everything. I've done everything, and the connection and the effect and what we achieve with the audience is the same, regardless the type of event, the industry. I've spoken to so many industries. I could tell that almost every single industry in the world has heard Virtuoso. even age groups. I've spoken to children in schools and to retired people in retiring communities and in continuous learning programs in universities for retired people. And the effect is always the same. People feel this sense of, I don't know, it's like if they fall into place. I feel that what I share in Virtuoso, everybody's longing to hear. It's a simple framework based in ancient philosophy that it's super relevant today, especially with the boom of artificial intelligence and rapid technological change. I think that putting the spotlight again in humans and allowing us to flourish and to really bring back humanism to everything we do is what people are longing for, so it's beautiful and universal. So
well, you mentioned the word universal a couple of times, and I know that you have spoken as a keynote speaker on 5 continents, and you've done a TED Talk, you've spoken at the Drucker Forum, you were at the World Business Forum. What do you, I mean, you say it's universal, but what's the magic? Why does it land in all these different continents with all these different industries?
I know it's weird because
everybody wants that.
I know everybody wants it, but it's funny because you have these stereotypes, you have these biases, So for example, I spoke at the Oslo Business Forum, a very, very big event in Norway. 4,000 people were there. And they warned me at the beginning, because in certain parts of my keynote, I invite the audience to sing, know?
Yes.
So they told me, don't do that in Norway. These Norwegians are not going to sing. And I was lucky because the speaker before me was Carla, what's her name?
Carla Harris.
Carla Harris, yeah.
Yes, she's great.
And you know that she's a gospel singer.
Yes, she is.
And she ventured and she sang there in Norway. So she kind of set the stage for me, and I thanked her.
She was your warm-up group.
Yes. Yeah. And I saw that the audience reacted positively to the music and to the singing and all of that stuff. So very last minute, I said, I'm going to do it. And I went backstage and changed and unhit the slides that included the singing. And but this was very, very last minute. And I did it, and it was incredible. So at the end, many people try to focus on the differences, on the cultural differences that we have in different countries or different continents. But I think I'm trying to focus more on the similarities, because at the end, we are all the same. We're all humans. We have the same longings in our heart. We have the same ideals in our mind. We might have different colors of skin, different colors of eyes, different types of faces. But if we cut ourselves, we all have red blood, and that's where I want to focus, in what makes it one. What makes us one, and how that unity can shine through the message that I'm delivering.
Oh, that's beautiful. Yeah, I think you're right. If someone has not seen you, and I think I had this experience with the client in January, and you start trying to explain it, a valid concern for someone who's been around the block a time or two preparing meetings is that it could come off kind of cheesy. And so I know the client was like, oh, I don't know, music, I don't know. But fortunately, there was a person on the team who had seen you at MPI and just raved. So that's what I'm hoping for the listeners today, that if they have concerns or they think, well, our audience, they don't do audience interaction very well, or, they're predominantly from another culture which traditionally doesn't do that.
Mm-hmm.
I want people to know they can bring that concern to you.
Absolutely.
And you have so much evidence to show that it's really a unifying message.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I am the first one that kind of questions and many times reject these exercises where you have to speak with someone on your side, or you have to stand up, or if you have to sing. I mean, but I've done it so many times, and it's always the same. And I love experiencing and experimenting the flow of how it starts, because it always starts awkward. People say, why is this guy making me sing? I don't want to sing here. This is not the place where we should be singing. This is a business conference, but I've learned how to manage the flow so that it ends up making a lot of sense, connecting perfectly with the client's needs, creating this sense of unity. And there's science, there are many studies that show that when people sing together, they create these special, very strong bonds, which actually, reinforce unity and a sense of belonging. And at the end, that's what happens when I do Virtuoso. At the end, people are hugging, singing out of their lungs, super happy, smiling, their fear, their shyness, their everything is gone, and they are super authentic, singing, having fun. And I think that's a very important element that I don't speak about, but it's part of the message. It's why not have fun in a business conference? It doesn't have to be super serious. These are very serious ideas. These are very strong intellectual concepts, but delivered in a way that touch your heart, but also entertain you. So it's fun. It's an experience that it's super complete,
I noticed during the sound check when we were in Vegas that you really do know your audience. You really know, there's going to be that awkward moment. When they're all going to be all in, and you're very generous with kind of sharing that during the sound check. Because I remember you going, now this first song, and you're looking out at 2,500 empty seats. You're like, there's going to be some hesitation. People are going to be thinking, what is this guy doing? And it was so reaffirming to see it all play out exactly like you said it would. Yeah.
And the way I confront that awkwardness from the audience is through humor, so I just make fun out of them, and they just laugh so hard, and that starts lowering the pressure and the stereotypes and the biases, and suddenly people become themselves. They forget about all the all the nonsense of not being vulnerable, of not being authentic, and at the end everybody opens up, sings, have fun, enjoy.
So fun.
And I think that's something we all need, especially these days.
So I know afterwards, I remember a lot of people want to come and talk to you. I'm always curious, what's the common sentiment or the common, what do people say to you when they come up after you speak?
I think probably the two more common comments are, one, people are very emotional, but at the same time, like with their minds open. So they have some very applicable ideas they can implement, but at the same time, they feel this, again, sense of joy, of happiness, of optimism, of hope, that I think only probably food and music can bring back, around a nice table with great food and great wine, or listening to great music. There's this element of, very intangible feeling of hope and of optimism that flourishes. So that's the first one. And the second one that actually I measure the success of my keynote when I hear this feedback. Because people can tell me, you play the piano great, or these ideas were wonderful, and that's fine. That's what I was there for, right? But when people tell me, Felipe, something, you really embodied what you speak about. So you showed method, you showed the right attitude, you showed passion. And when I hear that feedback, I said, I did a good job, Oh. And I love hearing that feedback. And when I don't hear it, I don't like it.
I know super experienced event planners have, it probably is not a concern for them when they hear that you want a piano. But maybe somebody is newer in the role as an event planner, and when they hear that, maybe they think, oh, that sounds like a hassle. Oh, how would I possibly get a piano? Oh my goodness, it's going to be so expensive. Can you talk a little bit about the practicality and the importance of having that piano on stage?
Yeah, it's super important. I always tell the meeting planners we should have a grand piano because it makes all the difference.
Yes.
In very, very extreme situations, we can settle for an electronic keyboard or something like that, but it's not the same,
No.
And then I will just say this: just as you rent huge screens and incredible sound systems and all of these props to bring up a beautiful setup. Renting a piano, it's as simple as that. It's like renting a video projector or a LED screen or a sound system. And there are piano vendors, piano rental vendors in every city in the world. And now I have a directory and I know some people. So if you call me and you tell me, Felipe, we need a piano in Scottsdale or in San Diego or in LA or in Vegas or in Orlando or in Mexico City, I know who to go to. They know me. And if not, we will find someone very easily. Just doing a Google search, I will find someone in probably less than an hour and lead you to the right person. And I'm there to help. I just want to help you to make it easier. So it's not difficult. It's very easy, actually.
I want to talk a little bit about, I joked earlier about, some people thinking, oh my gosh, this guy's an overnight success. I was really, really struck by a LinkedIn post that you did. And I don't think you did it for me necessarily, or even for event planners. I think you were really speaking to your fellow speakers.
Yeah.
And you were just sharing, hey, I'm looking back and I'm thinking, and, when I got started, I spoke to some really small audiences, and you had some photographs where maybe you were speaking to 5 or 8 people. And you talked about the small stages. You talked about traveling with your keyboard. Speaking of now wanting a grand piano, you were like doing oversized baggage cargo checking of your keyboard. And you were just saying, hey, don't get discouraged. Again, your audience were your fellow speakers. You were saying, don't get discouraged. You got to put in the work. You got to refine your craft. If you keep at it, it will come. And as I read that, I just kept thinking of the contrast of the small audience with that huge audience in Vegas, and the small stage and the huge stage. And I just wanted to comment that I think it's in the humility. Oh, that was the most important thing. How could I possibly forget that? You also said, that you just have to be humble as a speaker, and you have to be willing to put the work in on the small stages with the small audience. And one of your slides, and I had a photograph where the word humility is on the background. So maybe you could talk about how you talk about humility actually in your presentation, because I was so proud to say, yeah, the stages got bigger and the audiences got bigger, but your humility has really remained. So maybe talk a little bit about how you address humility.
Thank you, Gail. Yes, great question. So basically, the structure of my message is method, attitude, and passion. And in each of those 3 pillars, I speak about 3 virtues or 3 habits of good action. Okay? So humility is one of the virtues in the attitude block. Okay? And basically what I say is that to embrace the right attitude, you have to think, develop, embrace, work on increasing your empathy, your humility, and service, and being always in constant disposition to serve other people. And I think those 3 virtues are super important, especially the humility one, being humble, because when you serve with arrogance, when you're empathetic in a selfish way, it doesn't make sense. It's not coherent. It is humility what gives the seal of this is authentic, this is real, And that's probably the approach I take on humility, is just being nice, being open, not being pretentious with anything, just being there to serve, to help other people. And if you do that, I think it's going to be much easier to work.
Yeah. Well, as you know, I have a certain affinity for Latin speakers, and you remind me very much of someone that's very important to me. With all that he has accomplished in this world, I just feel like it's just human nature. Maybe it's a Latin thing, but he is one of the most humble people, and you strike me exactly the same way. So beautiful. What's next, Felipe? What, you got any new books? You got anything out there on the horizon that maybe we can tip people off to today?
Well, what happened many years ago with Attitude E, people asking me, what's next? What do you have? All of these clients I've spoken to with Virtuoso, they reach to me and they say, Felipe, people love you. We want you back. There are some clients that have had me for 4 years in a row in their events. Wow. It's funny. And they love it, So I said, okay, I'm going to do something again with music, because I had the Attitude E thing, but it's without music. So I started thinking, how do you really make operational these ideas of becoming a virtuoso? Because I mean, it's a nice ideal, but how do you make it happen? And I found out that it was by tweaking and changing very little things that you do each day. So it's little behaviors. These are micro habits that when you start piling them up, you suddenly become a virtuoso. Okay, so I mapped all of these micro habits that you need to develop in these 3 pillars, and I found out that there was one micro habit that was present all across the board and that was needed for everything, and that is the habit of listening well. And I started researching on listening and found out some very scary statistics where that we are all very bad listeners, and it's funny because they teach you how to speak, they teach you how to write, they teach you how to express yourself in public, but they never teach you, or at least I didn't have any formal education on how to listen. There's actually a statistic that only 2% of the population in the world has received formal training in listening well, and that's incredible. So I came up with this idea of a new keynote called The Beauty of Listening, and it's about how can you sharpen your listening skills. And my method is by falling in love with classical music. So I bring in the piano and I play classical music during the keynote, and I invite people to follow this framework to listening thoroughly to classical music. And those skills can be perfectly applied when you're listening to your spouse, to your children, to your colleagues, to your employees. And it will help you to become better listeners. So I just launched that probably a little bit more than a year ago. A few of the clients that had me in the past with Virtuoso invited me to share this with them, and there it is. It's growing. I still feel a little nervous when I deliver it because I probably delivered it 15 or 20 times. The other one I've delivered 100, 1,000 or 1,200 times. So I perfectly know when people are going to laugh, when people are going to cry. I can perfectly predict the whole thing with Virtuoso, but I am just discovering the way with The Beauty of Listening. But it's so nice and so needed. So that's a project. And of course, I've had in my backlog writing a book about Virtuoso, and hopefully that would happen soon. I've been just postponing, but I have to do it.
You'll know when the time is right. Yeah. Well, thank you so much. I love your ability to blend, insight with inspiration and strategy with sound. I mean, I think it is truly one of a kind. And one of your most important messages is you just remind us that leadership isn't a function. It's really an art.
It's an art.
So I love that you're blending that all together. So for our event planners out there listening, if you want to elevate your next conference or meeting with a speaker who brings undeniable, unforgettable energy, wisdom, and live music to the stage, we would love to talk to you about bringing Felipe Gomez to your event. And Felipe, thank you so much. I'm just so excited for what's next for you. I just love watching you grow and impact this world. I think it's fantastic.
Gail, thank you for this invitation, and thank you for everything you and your team have done for me. The trust and the openness and the kindness that you have showed is impossible to pay back. So very grateful and very happy to be here in this incredible podcast with you. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on Backstage Pass with Gail Davis. Tune in for more exclusive interviews and pro tips to elevate your events. Don't forget to subscribe and share your thoughts with us. We'll catch you next time behind the curtain on Backstage Pass.